Trying to turn some lights on here because I live in like a dark cave of a room.
Oh man, it's busy already.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, Nessa. Doug, we got an audience already. Look at that.
You know, we've still got like 5 minutes left until start time too.
All right, let's see. Who are the usual suspects here? Yeah, I see some familiar names. Uh, these are like our loyal customers, always coming to our events, no matter what the time is. Marvelous.
Hi, Ty.
Hello, how we doing?
How's your power, Ty?
Good, good. We are back on the right side of things.
There were some huge winds here, a couple of like close to the Stanford campus a couple of days ago, and I was out to dinner with a friend, and then I got after dinner I looked at all my notifications like your power is off, your cameras are off, your Wi-Fi is down, your home hub is gone, and then 10 minutes later they're all back up again. Some branch on a power line somewhere, but all went by me while I was eating Thai food. Thank goodness.
Nice. Yeah, we've had power go out a couple of times over the last few days, once for a couple of hours, and then just a little bit ago for just those 10 minutes or whatever it was. But it is, my wife is finishing her master's of education, so I graduated, then she started school again, so we're still in the campus housing, campus Wi-Fi rigmarole. It's not always the most reliable.
Free but not reliable. I mean, yeah, you take your pick, right?
Right, right.
Wow, it looks like people are giving the times where they are. So it's just about midnight where I am. Primo said almost noon, 6 a.m. in Germany, 5 a.m. in Portugal.
Wow. It's 9 p.m. On our side of the earth.
So what's the cause for all these power outages, Ty? Is it the wind or is it like construction work?
They're doing they're doing some work on the gas lines, and I suspect that the amount of work they're doing on the gas lines has something to do with it, because it's only started since they started that work. But I'm not really sure. It's always happened to some extent. Either the Wi-Fi goes down or the power goes out all the time.
I do not approve of that.
I do not approve of it either.
They
My
should consult
children don't
us.
approve of it either.
Oh my Lord, yeah. iPad down.
Right. TVs go off. The house is completely
Oh,
dark.
no, wait. What do you do? What do you do with the kids? Go out for a
Well,
walk and look at the stars?
it's their bedtime now, but if it was a little bit earlier, we'd probably light some tea candles and just like sit around together in the living room, so they wouldn't be quite so frightened of the dark. Um,
That's kind of
but
sweet.
yeah, and we don't get. You would think we do because we're so close to the ocean, but we don't get the best view of the night sky. I guess there's too much light pollution.
West Coast US, I assume, yes. Crappy
Yes.
light pollution.
Matt.
Matt, David,
Hey, how's it going?
all the
Oh,
usual
I didn't see you. Hey,
suspects.
David.
Katie,
Hey,
Katie.
Ty.
Neil.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like I saw more stars. Brady. Every time I add a pin, I feel like we look more like the Brady Bunch over here.
Make it a
After this
suggestion.
in private, we can discuss who is who because people usually call me a Marcia. I don't know why.
Can I make a suggestion? And so you might be planning to do this anyway, but Nikhil already got started. It's so awesome to see faces of the folks who are here in addition to the head TAs. If you're in a place where you're comfortable to come on camera, it's so great. And if you're not, it's okay. But it's just extra special to see faces as well as the head TAs. We all see each other regularly anyway.
Matt, you put that in such a sweet, friendly way. I admire that.
Oh, thank you, Bob. It goes right along with what I ask people if they're able to share where they're joining from. And if they're not comfortable sharing geography, just under a spider web or under a ceiling fan is great too.
Yep.
Oh, I'll add the
Yeah,
tagline.
people have been posting.
I
Oh,
joined from the messiest room in my parents' house, and I don't even blur the background. I don't think so. Yeah. So hopefully that encourages folks that it's okay wherever you're joining from.
100%.
and I
My
will
camera just
remind because
isn't.
it's distracting. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Ines, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I said my room is just very distracting. There's art all over the walls, and mine it's too distracting. Too many interesting things to look at, so I blurred mine.
Well, my camera isn't good enough to pick up the dust bunny, so I'm very, very happy to just have it open all the time. Oh, we got a good audience. We got what, like 30 plus folks on? Do we have all our TAs?
Um, all of us that planned to be here at this time, we should have one or two more TAs coming in, but a little bit late. All right, I enabled Q&A. Okay. Are y'all able to see the Q&A or the Q&A option? Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
Yes.
and I'm going to answer the first question. No, this is my protein drink, Sanika. No coffee. It's 9 p.m., so no more coffee.
Let me see, how does this work? Okay, I can share
There you
my
go.
other window for these slides. Should we give people another minute or two to come in here, or should we just start off with some introductions?
I think just
Oh,
start.
we can,
Yeah.
yeah, let's roll. 9:04.
Okay.
Room.
Oh, wait, we have one more today. Let me just pin them real quick. There we go. All right, so welcome to the head TA AMA for the section leaders here. You might remember the head TA panel from previous years, but this year we're going to be a little bit more interactive, keeping the Q&A open, keeping the chat open as well. So, all right, let's start on some introductions. And please include a fun fact when you introduce yourself too.
So I'm Doug Case. I got my master's in CS from Stanford years ago. Since then, I've mostly been working here in Silicon Valley as a software engineer and software engineering manager, except for 1 year I lived in the Philippines. Last few years, so I've been teaching computer science and data science at a couple colleges not too far from Stanford. Fun fact, my wife and I got married at this church right here at Stanford.
Nice.
I'm Bob. You've seen me and a bunch of other people on the events, which I love doing. It's a lot of fun for me. I've either been with Code in Place 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on what your criteria are. But fun fact, I think, is that I used to program robots to make cheese, and I still have them working for me in the kitchen right now. Alexa, keep making that cheese.
Nice. My name is Ty. I have been with Code in Place for 5 years, which is wild, but I absolutely love it. I also participate in a lot of the events, so you may have seen me. If you come to the PM events, I graduated from Cal State Monterey Bay last year with a degree in computer science, and am currently a data analyst by trade. And my ultimate kind of like long term goal is to get my PhD and become a professor. So that's kind of several years, but we're working on it. Fun fact about me: I absolutely adore fishing. Being outdoors at all, but especially fishing, deep sea fishing, lake fishing does not matter. I find it to be super relaxing. I love the quiet, and yeah, I find it to be a whole lot of fun.
I want to hear a story later about one that got away, Ty, because that is inextricably bound with fishing. So,
Most of them get away.
Oh, hey, thanks, Ty. Yeah, hey everyone, what's going on? I'm David Tsai. This is my 5th year with Code in Place. I started as a CIP student and then taught as a section leader for 2 years and then joined the head TA team last year, 2025. I studied computer science at MIT and have worked as a software engineer and product manager at places ranging from the largest hedge fund in the world to a small indie game dev studio. Currently in Los Angeles, but I've worked all across the US and also in Tokyo. Fun fact, I'm a big fan of the TV show Survivor, and that was a wild season finale last night. I'll pass it over to Matt.
Hi, folks. I'm Matt. I was just looking around for a little Carol thing figure that I have that somebody sent me during the first Code in Place I did, which was Code in Place number 2. So I've been around since Code in Place number 2. Love it. Great time. I look forward to it every year. And yeah, fun fact. Let's see. I'll give you this. I couldn't find Carol, so I have Darth Vader here. Always have some props for teaching. Um, Although, fun fact also, don't bring Darth Vader when you're talking about like doing rubber duck debugging, because it's really intimidating to tell Darth Vader what you're trying to do. So yeah, that's my fun fact for you. Oh, and yes, this is a real university, and I visited once. That's Transylvania University, and I did not see any vampires. Cool. I'll hand it off to Katie.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. This is my 3rd year with Code in Place. I started as a section leader for 1 year and then head TA 2 years now. I currently work as a manager of education programs at Girls Who Code. And I've been teaching coding for like more than 10 years now. Started with Dev Bootcamp and then Kaplan and Girls Who Code and Code in Place. Um, my fun fact, the one I typically share is I, it feels recent, but I guess over a year ago now, I retired from being a professional ballerina. So I was able to straddle working in tech with doing ballet professionally. But then I also was inspired by Doug. I don't have your background, but I was baptized in the chapel at Stanford. So that's just my little Stanford fun fact. And I'll pass it to the next slide, whoever's next.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Shivadeep, and I've been with Code in Place since 2021 as well. So 4 years as a section leader, and this is my 5th year as an HTA. So I started off when I was in my sophomore year in college, and then I graduated in 2023, and I've been working as an AI engineer for the last 3 years. So Code in Place has been a very instrumental part of my journey through my education, and now as I'm working as well. And fun fact about me, I guess that. when I'm not coding and not spending my time thinking about bugs and everything, I really enjoy lots of different kind of sports. So if you want to talk about any kind of sports altogether, so whether you want to talk about Barcelona's great performance last this whole year, or if you want to talk about how Roger Federer's backhand is simply sublime, I'm always up for a conversation about that. But really happy to be here. Thank you so much.
All right, and I'm Inessa. So this year I am the ambassador team program lead and marketing strategy. Also a bit of a generalist, helping with various like head CA duties and other things. If you got emails from Code in Place, a good chunk of those you probably got them from me, and I signed them Code in Place team. I started as a student in 2020. I was a section leader in 2021. I've been a head TA twice and a director before moving into a more marketing focused type of role. And I'm going to be doing some of the moderating today and looking through the Q&A to make sure your questions get answered. Oh, and my fun fact, I didn't do ballet very well. I tried it as a kid, and then got moved into ballroom dance, and I did that for a good chunk of my life. I quit for a few years and then ended up on my college's team by accident. I walked into the room because I followed someone else, and then I ended up not leaving, and that was that. All right.
Colleges have ballroom dancing teams?
Yeah, it's actually quite competitive, quite interesting, and
That's
different
awesome.
colleges also have like completely different methods. Some colleges will have people doing simpler steps but perfecting them. Other schools will go with the more difficult steps, even if they don't get it perfectly. So different schools even have different methods for training their teams.
That's wonderful. I've never heard of that. I love that idea.
Well, I see more questions coming in the Q&A as well. But I think maybe we should answer the ones that came in early in the forum, and then go through some of the Q&A questions. Does that sound good to everybody?
Works for me.
Okay. So there were a few that came in about the SL experience, asking about what's the time commitment, how does Code in Place prepare the SLs before the course starts, and then we had like a +1 agree wanting to get some insight into the SL experience. So that's open to any of you, and if any SLs are in the audience and want to chime in with anything else as well.
Who was most recently an SL on this team? Because a lot of you folks haven't been an SL forever.
I mean, I was an SL last year, so I guess I
Ah,
could speak
you're
on
it.
this a bit. Yeah,
Tag.
so yes. So, I mean, in terms of the time commitment, I think it goes simply as you need to be in your section every single week. So 50 minutes for 6 weeks straight. Of course, there is a lot of, room to work things around. So if you can't make it a week, you can always cover sections for other section leaders, or you can teach 4 Teach Now sessions to cover up your attendance. This is just talking about the eligibility criteria for certificates, but that's the baseline. But definitely we have some wonderful SLs who go above and beyond, covering sections every single week, answering questions on forums, and teaching multiple Teach Now sessions. So that is completely voluntary, up to you, but the baseline commitment is attend your section every week. If not, cover 4 Teach Now sessions or cover a section. Um, does CIP prep SLs before the course starts? Yes. And I think it's a wonderful training that every SL gets. You get 2 weeks of mandatory training, and in that training, you go through some different kinds of guidelines, some pointers from HTAs and the staff. And apart from that, you also um, get to practice teach, right? So even SLs need practice, right? And I think that's the most important and core element of our SL training is the practice teach that you get, where SLs get into groups of 2 or 3 and breakout rooms, and they practice teaching your first 2 weeks of problems, and the other SL acts as, students at that point of time. So I think that we do go through a lot of training, and those trainings I think are a core highlight for SLs. uh, Love to get some insight into the SL experience and training prep. I think the third question pretty much covers what I answered in the second one. So yes, SLs do go through training, and I think SLs have a wonderful time. I think this time around was great for me because being an SL last year and transitioning into an HTA, I got to see the other side of things. So how it works for an HTA to organize these events, and it really works out well for everyone in that case. So I hope that answers the question for SL experience.
If there's any SLs in our audience that would like to maybe put in the chat what they thought of the training experience, or if they want to sort of write down what they think the time commitment is. For me, I've never been an SL. It almost seems like being an SL is sometimes feels like less of a commitment, more of a responsibility, but less of a commitment than even being a student. Yeah, you still have the responsibility of teaching classes, but it feels sometimes like students do way more prep. But then again, I haven't been an SL. If any SL wants to chime in on that, go ahead, put it in the chat or let us know.
And I would also say, I think that over the years, because I have also never technically been an SL, but when I started as a head TA in year 2 of Code in Place, um, there was a relatively large need for head TAs to cover sections. So I did get the opportunity in my first year to be responsible um, for a section alongside kind of facilitating the growth of other section leaders at the same time. So we got the opportunity to feel what it's like to have to teach and have to prep and kind of really get involved in what that looks like. And I think that in an ideal scenario, right, you want to spend your week preparing so that your 50 minutes is as good as they are as good as they could possibly be, right? Because you are kind of the caveat between not knowing and knowing for these people who've never programmed before. So you don't have to, but it's highly recommended, that you spend some time, obviously, before the class, preparing for the class, working out how you're going to teach, break down your class time into sections, into into like chunks, so that you know when you need to make a transition from one thing to another, making sure you're keeping track of your forum for your students. So there are things outside of that mandatory commitment that in an ideal scenario you're paying a fair amount of attention to so that your students can get the best experience possible.
So I would add a couple things. Probably the thing that is most important as an SL is bringing the energy, right? Bringing the energy to that classroom, that special sauce that is Code in Place, that makes Code in Place a different experience than every other multi. What's the acronym? Somebody will put it in the chat. The multi-user something.
MOOC.
Yeah, right. So that makes Code in Place different, right? Everything's got a lecture. Everything has a coding experience. Code in Place has a live component. I mean, hey, we're live here, right? But bringing the energy and bringing it doesn't mean that you have to be over the top. It just means that you have to kind of let yourself shine through. And Bob has an energy that he brings. David has. I'm just calling out the head TAs here. David has an energy that he brings. Subhadeep has an energy that he brings, right? Katie has an energy that she brings, and that's what's really cool about the SL experience is that outside of the here's the content to really hone in on during section, right? Outside of that, we really want your personality to come through in section. In fact, like part of the application process, and I'll go out on a limb and maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this. My famous line. Somebody report me for saying this, but it's just go up to the little gear, file a report, and say Matt said this right and it wasn't right. But the video of you teaching, that's a part of your section leader application, and dare I say it's for me the most important thing, because it is important to comment on somebody's code. Comment's the wrong word. Give commentary to help them come up with a solution, right? Different than telling them the answer. But that what happens in the classroom is really what separates a SL from a SL, right? A section leader from a section leader. And that's what makes the students want to. I see a lot in the chat about the students spending more time than the SLs, but do you know why they do? It's because they want to learn. It's because the SLs inspire them. The SLs make them want to come back week after week. And I mean, I can just I'll throw it out at Subhadeep. Subhadeep was a section leader last year, like you mentioned, and I mean, I would see Subhadeep, you, Nikhil would come to our section leader trainings week after week, even when they weren't mandatory, right? And that sort of sharing of experience. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't. Here's what I like to try. I mean, that's the other thing that's really cool about Code in Place. While we're a community for the coders, we're also a community for the section leaders to help the section leaders get better at teaching. So it's not just how do you become a section leader and what's the process and how do you get trained. It's also the how do you continue to develop, right? We keep learning even after I saw somebody put in their profile the other day, continuing to learn even when we don't have the student badge on our profile. And I think that just really touched my heart.
And it looks like in the chat, like people are putting very varied times. Someone wrote overall 7 hours to prepare, a few hours for the PowerPoints, a few hours for preparation, practice, engaging with students. Others can cruise by on a minimum of 1.5 hours per week. For me, when I was a section leader, I came in as a super new coder the year prior, so I was spending a lot of time reviewing beforehand. Um, I guess if no more SLs have anything to add, I can move on to the next part, which is advice for students who want to section lead. So this was a few questions that came in on the forums, some key points that can help students who want to become section leaders in next year's Code in Place, and how much programming experience do you expect from SLs? And anybody feel free to take these.
Well, Matt's already like spilled the secret sauce, and I don't know
Well,
that there's anything more more to add now that all the secrets are gone. I mean, should we just tell them exactly what it takes to become an SL, Matt?
Sorry, I didn't drop the mic, but you can still use the pop. No, I think the thing about being
This meeting is being recorded.
And Chris's idea was, what if we took people who had never really taught before and helped them learn to teach people who had never really written code before? How big could this thing get? And so I think that the willingness to learn to teach another person is the kind of first and foremost thing, because everybody learns differently, right? Everybody has different needs. Everybody has different levels of comfort with doing things like speaking up, or even things like turning on cameras. Like how would you be able to keep a class engaged when you can't see a face, right? So these are things that you kind of get taught how to do over time. So I think that eagerness to learn, in the same way that you have an eagerness to learn as a student, is kind of the core of what this whole thing's built upon. So you are not, like Bob alluded to, you're not expected to have the same level of knowledge as a developer who's been working in the field for 10 years. That would kind of run slightly counter, I think, to this kind of self-feeding community that has been built over the years. So bring a willingness and an eagerness to learn, and, like Matt said, emphasize the energy. People can really feel that. And when people can recognize your energy and your enthusiasm, it is far less of an issue when you make the inevitable mistake that we always make, right? It feels like a collaborative learning experience, which is what it is and what it's supposed to feel like.
All right, let's move on to the next question from the forum. This one's about the head TA experience. So those of you that have been quiet, hopefully you can answer this one first. So somebody wrote, would love to get some insight into the path to becoming a TA. Someone asked if the TAs were former SLs first. The third question, I think we answered that a little bit earlier, how long we were involved with Code in Place before becoming TAs. And in the Q&A, someone asked, is there a scope? Is it limited to Stanford students and alumni? So I think we can answer all of that live.
Should go over what a head TA actually does first, right? Because I think that's sometimes pretty mysterious. So I'd say some of our core duties include reviewing section leader applications, right? We do that before the course even starts. And then once we get the section leaders in, we do the training, right? So it's kind of like teaching teachers how to teach, which is really cool. And we make the content for like the slides and the material for the training sessions. And then as the course goes on, we're constantly monitoring the bug reports, the forums, all the forums, right? Because we have several. And we're also on call. We have on call basically when the live sections are in action, which is like a 46-hour window between Wednesday and Fridays Pacific time. And if you haven't noticed already, we also have high school students in the course, and some of the head TAs will sometimes cover for those sections as well. To do that, we need to do a special live scan, which is offered in the state of California. And I think the main part of our job is really handling edge cases, like unique one-off scenarios and urgent situations. A lot of strange stuff can happen, like either bugs or people-related stuff, right? And the head TAs handle all of that. We track privacy and solicitation violations. Sometimes people will post Zoom pictures with people's faces on social media, so the head TA team is in charge of tracking that as well. And we host all events, right? And sometimes that includes hosting the events ourselves. Sometimes that includes coordinating with guest speakers, right? Bringing in guest speakers. There's also other events that aren't on the events page. For example, we usually have an annual T-shirt design contest. or a head TA will make code in place Zoom wallpapers, right? That's pretty cool. And last year we did the hackathon, right? And so yeah, those are all the different things that a head TA actually does. On top of that, we cover for sections, so it's sort of like a SL plus plus sort of role. Did I miss anything?
David, what's even more important is what's the most fun part of being a TA for you?
Oh, for me, I think definitely the training is the most fun for me because I really like the concept that Ty laid out earlier, right? Which is code in place. The core philosophy is like, okay, there's a hypothesis. Like, can we teach people who haven't taught before how to teach, right? And then, when we go through the section leader applications, there's internal scores, right, about someone's teaching level or whatever, right? But, inside we'll say like, this person, we want them to pass, right? We think with a little bit of hand holding, right, a little bit of training, a little bit of practice, I think they can make a great teacher because they bring the energy, the great atmosphere. And then to be a head TA means being the person who's actually doing that hand holding, that training, right? So I think that's the most enjoyable part for me.
I certainly do love the training too. I would love to hear from the other TAs on the panel what their favorite part of the job is.
So I enjoy the training. I also enjoy um, the events, watching events, putting on events, and also just monitoring the forum and seeing what's going on with the students and with the section leaders. And most of the time I'm not replying. Sometimes I'm replying to them if I can help in some way or shed some light on something. But monitoring the forum and kind of experiencing things through other people, seeing what's going on with them is really good as well. I like that aspect of it as well. But yeah, and also the looking at the videos when the section leaders are applying is interesting as well. So I enjoy all those things.
I couldn't agree with you more about the forum being like this super sort of like multi-dimensional puzzle, right? You're going to figure out, okay, who needs help? Who needs help the most? What kind of help do they need? Doug, popcorn to the next person. What TA should answer next, Doug?
Katie.
I think my favorite part is so I do a lot of work with the minors, SLs who are under 18 years old. And I think during the section leader selection process, sometimes coming across videos of super motivated teachers who are younger and have way way newer ways or innovative tools and new ways of teaching that I haven't personally seen yet is always really exciting to me. This is a non-traditional education system, so seeing more creativity from the younger section leaders is always really really inspiring to me. I'll
Wow,
popcorn it to
I
Matt.
love those. I love those young SLs. I just want to like, yeah, my first year watching it too, and it's like I love seeing them, their energy and like all this really cool stuff they bring to the table. Sorry, Matt, go.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll do this rosebud style, which I forget exactly always how that goes, but the slight thorn thing or the slight hard thing about being a head TA, and then some really joyful things. What's really hard for me as a head TA is it's kind of bittersweet. It's we get a lot less direct face-to-face contact with participants of Code in Place. Yes, with section leaders, definitely by design, right? But there's nothing like being in a room full of students, learners, coders, right? Watching those aha moments happen, seeing somebody understand a concept, seeing somebody have that frustration that then flips over to, oh my gosh, what? And then the next week, seeing them offer their solution up to the group, right? I mean, we probably, even as students, we could probably share times where we have seen that happen for ourselves or for other students. So I miss that part of participating in Code in Place as a section leader. That said, as a head TA, we sort of get that in a multiplier effect because even though we're not always seeing it, right, it live in person, we get to see it over in the special area where section leaders share their experiences. We get to see it in some of the things that come through during the section leader training. And I'll call it like the multiplier effect or the ripple effect, which is to say that when Nikhil or Jake, since they're on camera, I'll pick on them. I used to pick on them in training too. When Nikhil or Jake have something that they share that happened in section, and three or four other section leaders say, "Oh my gosh, it happened to me too. How'd you handle it?" And then the section leaders have an aha moment to say, "Oh wow, yeah, I never thought to try that." And it's just cool because it's like we I don't know if it's a Kevin Bacon how many degrees of separation thing or what, but there's these tiers of influence of kind of effect that happen within Code in Place. And then seeing it too all the way down to is the wrong word, but the trickle down to the individual learners who are then having a better experience, and that we know they're having a better experience because, wait for it, some of them even come back as section leaders, and eventually some of them even as head TAs. But it's just so cool. The power of the effect on one person, right? And the multiplier that can have. It's amazing. That's what I love about being a head TA. Was giving you all
Lost
the
your mind.
lottery numbers on mute there. If we're still popcorning, that's by the way, that's one of my favorite things to say when I forget to unmute. Is I was just giving you the lottery numbers for tomorrow. Anyway, oh, by the way, that's the other thing. I love like just embracing mistakes. I mean, what else can we do, right? Okay, so if we're still popcorning, I will send it over to Inessa, and if we're not popcorning, Inessa, take it to our next subject.
All right. I guess one thing I can answer with is Katie mentioned the minor group, but on the other side is the older learners, people who may have already had a completely different career for decades coming back and learning something new, which I think is pretty amazing and something to look up to. The first year that I was head TAing, the head TAs had office hours, and I remember someone coming in who had been a teacher for years and was asking for help with how to use Zoom, which at that point had already been something that I take for granted because I was taking remote classes before it was cool. Like even before COVID, a few of my classes were remote. Um, and I just feel like it's so amazing that people come back after all those years. Um, yeah. And I guess since almost everyone answered, Subhadeep, do you want to close this one out?
Oh, yep, sure. I mean, I think everyone's pretty much covered everything, right? Starting from SL trainings, the reviews, the events. So they pretty much sum up the positive aspects of the HTA experience. I think if I have to mention any one aspect of, since this was my first year, I think the events that we have, especially the social events, like if you're talking about the SL Hangouts, the mentor socials, the SL socials, the community co-working sessions and everything, I think they go beyond what, just in general talking about the curriculum or about the course, but they give us an insight into the people, into the community that we are interacting with, right? Just to give an example, right? In the SL social, right, we had a topic where we were discussing about what was the first programming language that the SLs were introduced to, right? Or what was their motivation behind applying to Code in Place, right? And just knowing what was their motivation behind contributing to this community, or what was their journey behind becoming the section leaders that they are today, just getting an insight into the individuals that are there here in Code in Place and their lives beyond this forum in general is something that is truly exciting. And I think just getting to know them at a personal level is something that is truly amazing for me.
And there was one part of the question that I don't think any of us got around to answering, but you don't have to be a Stanford student or alumni to be an SL or a head TA. I was a psychology student at Stony Brook University. Um, I don't, can we get a show of hands how many of us were not Stanford students? See, I think that's most of us on this call now.
Yeah, so I think the main question over there that no one's touched on is the path to becoming a head TA. And that's I'm sort of curious since you were a director last year. I've always thought of jobs as getting a jobs as a two-stage process, right? Like getting the interview and then passing the interview. Now we're probably not going to talk about the latter, but how do people get a link to the HTA app? So do you know the process behind that?
I actually don't know how it worked this year because I wasn't helping with that this year. Last year, during the time when I was director, I did a small marketing internship and I got really interested in marketing. And then when this year's cohort came around, I was asked if I want to be the team lead for the ambassador program, which started last year. This was the second year that we had that. So up until a week or two into when the head TAs were starting, I was focused on that. So I'm not quite sure how they chose this year or how it worked this year. I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a better answer than that.
We want more secret sauce, just like Matt's been pouring it all over this session. We want some from you now.
Yeah, that's, I guess, not a question for me this year since I wasn't doing that aspect of it. But someone else asked how you got to be a head TA. So I guess who emailed you? Who sent you the application? How did you apply? The folks that just came in for the first time this year, that might be the question for you.
Oh, I'll jump in because I don't want to suffer from the Subhadeep syndrome where everybody already has answered everything and I just have to make stuff up at the end. Um, I got an email from I think it was Cameron, or at least it was one of the Code in Place official emails. And I think it was because I had done a bunch of work for the experienced students last year. Um, and I guess they didn't hate it. So they said, come back and do more stuff we don't hate. I'll popcorn too. Who got, let's see, who's a new HTA? Subhadeep, are you a new HTA?
Yes, Bob, thank you. So I guess similar process, you get an email from Cameron. Then you fill out a form. Okay, I'm actually spilling all the sauce out here. I'm not going to go into too much details about what's there in the form or not, but I'm just going to give you the process of how it worked out for me. So you get an email from Cameron. You fill out a form. Not going to share the questions in the form because it may change next year. So I don't know if it's going to work that way. Then I think if he likes the responses that you have in the form, you get called for an interview, and that's a 1 hour interview in which again, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to give out the questions, but you get asked questions about different situations and stuff like that. What would you do as an HTA? That's pretty much it, and then you hear back whether you're selected or not. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, there's some feedback in the chat too. Who you popcorning to, Subhadeep?
Oh, I guess someone who's been here, I guess Doug, because he's been here for a pretty long time as an HTA.
Yeah, so I like Bob said, I got an email out of nowhere, asking me if I was interested in doing it. But I think to to be considered for this, I suspect what's being looked for is section leaders who go way above and beyond, like who are super active with the forums or in is obviously spending a lot of time contributing to Code in Place in some way that's above and beyond. I think it's, you know, I'm guessing that's part of the criteria. So I think it's just people and looking for people who are really excited about Code in Place and really contributing where they are now as section leaders in a huge way.
And I would say some criteria, maybe it changes year to year. Like we can't know that right now. But it looks like somebody wrote in the meeting chat that they also got an email from one of the admins, and they feel like people appreciate how involved folks are in the past. I can't remember who emailed me the first time I was a head CA. I don't think she works for Code in Place anymore.
And so can I just add two
Yeah.
things real quick?
Yeah.
I think going above and beyond is great. It definitely is, but it all starts at the base too, right? It starts with showing up for every section to teach. It starts with being there for your students. It starts with having an active section forum, being active in the main forums. It starts with all of the things that are section leader requirements. And I know that sounds really, really kind of nominal, to use space shuttle terms, right? When they say everything is nominal, like it's almost boring, right? But no, it has to start there, because going above and beyond in one area but not covering the foundation, right? It kind of raises a question. And we all have things that come up, and maybe something like a family emergency happens or something. So if you miss a section, get do one of those covers, right? Do the teach nows for sure. But definitely it starts with the base, right? Going above and beyond is meaningful because you have the base covered.
Yeah, I like to follow up on what Matt said. This isn't about passing the newbie, but like getting that email that everyone's talking about. And I think everyone has a different story, right? I'm sure my story is different from all the other head TAs on the team. I think the first thing to observe is that when you go to like the team page for Code in Place, like 3/4 of the people are like Stanford students or alums, but about a fourth are from outside the university, right? And I think a lot of us are actually here tonight. So for the people who are Stanford based, I think they go through maybe a different process. There's probably like a listserv somewhere that, some way of, getting them into the program. So I can only speak about the external hires. I would say, typically we've all had extensive experience of Code in Place, right? A lot of us are multi-year section leaders. There are rare exceptions, right? For example, Bob, wasn't a section leader. And I would like to say that I think Matt kind of hit it, right? I like to think about it as a. Have you guys ever heard of like a T-shaped skill set or a T-shaped individual? So in the T, right, like the top of the T, which is the width part, it's like how well rounded are you as a section leader, right? So some people they teach an incredible number of covers or teach lots of teach nows, right? Or write incredibly insightful posts and submit tons of reports. And these people get noticed, right? Like we have stats on the forums for how active people are. And like in Mario Kart, right? Mario is like the world. You have all the stats covered, right? So you need that at least, and also just be a great section leader. But I've noticed that a lot of the head TAs on the team also have the vertical part of the T, which is they actually did do something that was above and beyond. For example, Matt, I think in Code in Place 2, you did the prototype of the campfire, right? Some sort of campfire thing, and that was very popular and got you noticed. And Bob was like an amazing contributor on the Experienced Students Forum. And we have Alexander, who taught a program called Life After Code in Place. So if you have the bases covered and you have that sort of T, there's a good chance you'll probably get noticed. And that's my observations.
David, first of all, lovely story. Thank you for the compliments also. You did a Mario analogy. Now I would like a Pokemon analogy too, please.
Oh, I don't know enough about Pokemon. What is the Mario equivalent of Pokemon? It's not Pikachu, right? Because he's not Superman. Or maybe, I don't know.
Somebody on this team, answer that question, please. We need Pokemon analogies. Really? No Pokemon Go players? Matt, your mic is open. Say something.
Yeah, I don't have a Pokemon Go analogy, but I'll just to comment back on what David mentioned. I think there is something to having a je ne sais quoi, right? But that doesn't mean that it has to be a brand new, we never saw this before. It can just be, it doesn't mean you have to be the forum stats leader or something like that. And that the campfires that David mentioned, yeah, it was this thing that we did in Code in Place 2, we had a concept of like it's office hours. We call it a study hangout for people who missed their first section. It's before we had the current platform with covers and makeups and stuff. And so it's kind of just a way for people to get more learning time together. And the one that I did, I just gave it a moniker, gave it a name, Coding by the Campfire, just to be cute. And it kind of grew really big and went on for like a whole. We didn't have a Code in Place after that until the next like 2 years later, so it lasted for like 18 months before I finally sunsetted it. And it
Talk
did
about
it did
above and beyond.
thanks, David. It did
Wow.
resurface in past Code in Places. I didn't bring it back yet this year, but truth be told, just because we've had so many other amazing events going on, I haven't found a slot for it. But if anybody is wondering, I think we'll get a couple of campfires in. Yeah, I did get a couple of emails, so it's probably coming. Sorry.
I in response to both of you, the the thing that Chris just keeps mentioning in every public appearance is fun, right? And in reviewing all of those 2000 SL applications, one of the things we looked for, I'm going to spill just a little bit more of the sauce, Matt, is we looked for atmosphere. We looked for SLs that were creating I'm going to use the word fun, a fun atmosphere, right? A class that you thought, hey, you know what? I'd like to be a student in this person's class. And in terms of being recognized or being noticed, if it really shows that you're having fun teaching, or you're having fun being a student who's helping other students, or you're having fun as an SL who is really like, going through all these problems and helping report typos and issues with the textbook. If it shows that you're having fun and you have passion and you're doing this not just because you want to score points or stars on your certificate or whatever, but that you're doing it because you're having fun and you're creating a great atmosphere for those around you too, then that gets you noticed, I think is the most important thing.
And somebody put something in the Q&A that I think is worth touching on. And it said, in other words, like any other organization, right place, right time, know the right people. There has to be an opening and a need, since head TAs are like tenured professors. Once you're there, you can keep coming back. New opening is based on attrition. So there it's kind of a yes and no situation, right? So the idea behind Code in Place is that every year that we do this, it continues to grow. So as the program continues to grow and as we continue to add students, it'll become naturally necessary for us to have more people, I think, in the head TA position. The first couple of years that we did it, there were not nearly as many of us as there are now. So I think that that opportunity is there, and as somebody who became a head TA as as a result of just like a super weird, it really was like a really random right place, right time. I was at the community college, coincidentally, that Doug teaches at, and I was whining to everybody that would listen to me that I wanted to teach somebody something. Like I wanted an opportunity to teach, to learn how to teach. And somebody put me in touch with Chris randomly, and here we are several years later. But that is not that's not the traditional way that things are done. I don't believe. I think that the best way to become a head TA at this juncture is to be to stand out within the community while you are actively in the community, right? Um, and whether that be, doesn't matter who sees it, right? It will be seen, right? Engaging with your class, contributing to the community, coming up with new ideas, tweaking old ones, and just constantly kind of bringing that energy and excitement. But I don't think it's so much necessarily based on right place, right time, right people, and I guess the like the best way to say this is theoretically Cameron could just toss me, if he was just like, I don't want you to come back next year. So we are not guaranteed our positions from year to year. So it's not so, I guess, it's not so ingrained as that. So I don't want anybody to be discouraged or think that it's not possible for them to become a head TA, because I certainly don't think that that's the case.
Our head count actually grew by 10 this year. I think we had like 19 last year, and this year we have like 28 or 29. So there's definitely sometimes slots open.
Is it okay if
Inessa
I
had to step away.
go ahead?
Go
I
ahead,
was
Matt.
just gonna say, is it okay? I think this is a good topic, but there's some really interesting things also over in the Q&A. And there's one that I had put a little. This will be great to answer live, and then of course it put it into the answered section. But I don't want it to go unnoticed. So if it's okay, just show of hands on the or in head nods. I see some head nods. Awesome. Okay, cool. Feel free to stick more "how do I get to be a head TA" questions into the chat or into the forums. But here is the question that I thought was so great. When working on a difficult programming challenge, how do you deal with the frustration of not finding a solution early on? There was a follow up as well, but I, I'd love to hear from the head TAs. I mean, what do you do? Because I need help here too.
This is my absolute favorite part of this entire experience. I think that anybody who has spent any amount of time with me knows how much I love this part. It is so incredibly important to have productive struggle when you're learning how to code. Um, we are taught, I would argue, by just by way of being educated from the time that we're young to the time that we graduate college, that when we are asked questions, those questions have finite answers. There is a right way to do this and there is a wrong way to do this. And that is not true when you're writing code. There are a ton of different ways to approach a ton of different problems. And so the best way to kind of attack that challenge is I always assume, no matter where I am in the problem solving process, that what I am thinking can be incorrect. And then I use my machine and the people around me to help me figure out where I am on the journey from starting this problem to having some sort of acceptable answer. And you can use any number of things that your computer gives you. Typically, your error messages are going to give you lines. If you're working in an IDE, it will give you signals that something's not right if something's obviously not right, right? But I think that the kind of the easiest quote unquote way to do this is to make sure that you really, really understand the problem that you're working on. And I tell students this all the time and remind myself of it constantly, that like something like 97% of the issues that I have when writing code come from me not understanding some tiny piece of what the question is asking me. And so when I'm constructing an answer, I construct it eloquently, but for the wrong problem, right? So I think that the best way to attack like the frustration is to really embrace it and change your relationship with it, and don't let not not having a solution yet make you feel like you are wrong or that you are failing or that you can't do it. I think that the reframing of that thought process is a really, really important part of learning to code or really learning to do anything. That comfort with making mistakes and doing things quote unquote the wrong way, and kind of changing your relationship with the idea of something being right and being wrong. Pieces of a solution can be right, but the whole solution might not be. And so you take what works and you keep it, and you take what doesn't and you iterate back over it until you come to something that works. And use the people around you. Put your heads together. If you can't figure it out, somebody might think about it a completely different way than you do. So even if they don't give you the answer, maybe they can give you a new way of thinking about things.
Yeah, just to add to that, in school, a lot of times learning something is an individual sport. In industry, it's like a team sport. You have people around you, and it's not only okay, it's expected if you get stuck on something, you'll ask someone else for help, and they will ask for you for help. So a lot of it, it's important being a team player and seeing yourself as part of a team in industry. Um, then the other question was asked is how do you get accurate schedules of time? Well, even experienced professionals struggle with that. So one thing to do is instead of saying I'm going to be done in 4 weeks, you give yourself checkpoints. After 1 week, I'm going to have this done. After another week, I'm going to have that done. Another week, have this done, so that you know if you're on track or not. Do individual steps along the way and try to find ways to verify those. You don't do the whole thing in one step.
I just have to make a comment on what Jake put into the chat here because it's where I was coming at things from too. It's getting away from the screen and the code is huge. You know, a long time ago in like the professional world, somebody taught me this thing of how to kind of deal with when you have a problem at work, and more with respect to maybe there's someone in the team who's doing something that's not right, right? So you can either maybe first step is if you're comfortable, you confront the issue. If you're not comfortable with it or that doesn't work, you escalate it. And if that doesn't work, you remove yourself from the circumstances, right? So if I apply that logic to how I approach a coding problem, all right, first thing I'm going to do is what Ty said. I'm going to use what's in front of me. I'm going to work on it, right? I'm going to confront the problem. I'm going to try to deal with it. Second thing I'm going to do is what Doug said. I'm going to escalate. I'm going to make it a team sport. I'm going to go over to Subhadeep and be like, Subhadeep, help me out, man. I don't know what to do here. You know, what's this fence post thing? I can't even find the paint to paint the fence. How do I find the fence post? And if that doesn't work, I'm going to do what Jake said. I'm going to jump out of that space and go do something else. When I used to tutor people, and I used to tutor athletes in college in computer science, and like the first thing I would do is I'd say, let's go for a walk. Let's get away from the computer. So I would flip it on its head. I'd flip the T upside down, David. But I think it's huge, right? To be able to step away. The answer will probably come to you while you're sleeping, shopping, or doing anything other than looking at the computer screen.
There's a lot of there as an education nerd. There's a lot of science behind what Matt and Jake are talking about. Active versus diffuse thinking gives your brain an opportunity to draw from your subconscious for something that you are actively trying to solve, but the solution might be a little bit out of reach for you when you're trying so hard to grab it, and when you're not focusing so hard on it, your mind actually can access a lot of cursory information that it wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So that is an absolutely amazing piece of advice. Get away from it. Turn your computer off. Walk the dog. Go outside. Go outside and play. Do something else.
Inessa, with your psychology background, you must have some interesting insights on this. I saw one of our other psychology students mention it in the chat as well, in the Q&A as well, or the chat actually.
I don't know if it's as much of an insight as like a personality trait, but I would take my device outdoors and work while also like touching grass. Please touch grass sometimes, as the phrase goes. So, um, yeah, I don't know if that's a psychology thing or a personality thing, but I felt like it helped to at least get some air and not be at the computer like 20 hours a day.
just to pivot to the second half of that question, it was additionally, how do you estimate the time required to develop a program? Uh, one answer I would have to that is experience. Some of that comes with experience, and um, not always the experience that I imagine we're all thinking of right away, which is like that you've seen it all before, or maybe the other experience, which is you've worked in the field for 30 years. That the reality is a lot's changing, right, in computer science every single day. I mean, which stocks to invest in for the AI boom, right? No, I'm just teasing, but a lot's changing, and as platforms change, as coding languages change, as all of these things change, that something that will remain constant is that we need to be critical thinkers. And that's the experience I'm really talking about. Is not how long have you been at a keyboard, right? In your life. It's not how many years behind a keyboard coding in an IDE. It's the critical thinking. So I think that's huge. And the other thing is, I mean, how do you estimate? The truth is, you probably almost never get it right. And Doug, you can probably speak to this from industry just as well as I can. I mean, how many meetings have you sat in during either like SDLC meetings or RUP meetings, or insert any programming and software development methodology in here, right? That's why half of these exist. New methodologies to try to better estimate and spread the load. I mean, Subhadeep, you have experience here too, right? Nikhil probably too. But it's also about being okay with getting the estimate wrong. And what do you do, right? How do you still move forward? I guess I see a lot of questions about like what happens after code in place and the other half of the 106A, and how can SLs still do things after code in place to help out. I'm going to make a plug here that the forums stay pretty active for a while after the last section. And while it's not always easy to get your teach nows then, hint, hint, if you need teach nows as a section leader to help um, boost some of your numbers, now is a great time to do that before it gets really hard to get them. But there is always there's always a whole batch of learners who are still learning either the course material after the official end of code in place, because they're on a different paced learning journey, which is okay, right? There are also people who are doing different things and are sharing that in the forums, and it's really nice to continue the welcoming energy that not only SLs but students can provide in that space. But I want to give a chance for Anessa or anyone else involved to talk about. Sometimes there's some unofficial things that happen, like life after code in place.
Yeah, Life After Code in Place has, I guess, traditionally at this point been a document that's released at the very, very end, which gives names and links to resources, whether it's vetted websites or even like the second half of the original Stanford course that this was based on that you could do on your own time. So the person who asked if there's a second part, you can access the second part, but it's not going to be with like section leaders and it's not quite the same. But there's so many resources that usually come out on that document. We've had SLs past send us things, send us links, send us book recommendations, all kinds of things. Um, so you can keep learning, whether as a student or even as a section leader. If you're curious about a different programming language, somebody might have already posted a link for some learning material in there. So hopefully there's something for everybody there. If anyone wants to add to that, or their experiences, if they've done anything after they were a student.
I'll just say, I know, so we're also always eyes open on more and more resources that could go in there that are logical to go in there. So, whether folks here or other folks in the forums have ideas of like, hey, I think this is a really great resource, send it our way. Take a look, and we'll try to get that in there, right? Find a good fit for it. So, that is a living, breathing document.
Yeah, for sure. Looking into trying to figure out if there's anything that's not a live link anymore in there and take it out, replace it with new things. It is different every time we release it.
I
And
know a lot of folks. I know a lot of folks appreciated your document, Matt and Anessa, from last year a ton, and there were a lot of questions about it. So lots of people dove into that. We have some more Q and A's. We see if we can answer some of those.
There is one that I see in here that that kind of particularly hits home for me. It says, "Are some of you CS majors, or did you pivot in your discipline in some sense? How did you navigate through all the uncertainties? And is there any role or significance that being a head TA means to your journey?" And I always tell people that I started programming as something of like a fortunate accident, but it really was. I had gone to college when I was 18, gotten an English degree, decided I didn't want to be a teacher, and kind of just worked odd jobs for almost a decade. And then I moved to California and decided that I wanted to go back to college. I started community college and I took a Java class on like a one-off flyer just because I needed to take something else. And I had never enjoyed anything as much as I enjoyed that class. And so I pivoted into CS that way, and I always had this kind of like really, really great love for education. I just was not interested in teaching high school, which is what I had initially gone to college for. And the more I advanced kind of on my journey of learning how to write code, the more interested I became in this section of the field, or this sector of the field, called computer science education, because it is a field that's been around for a while, but that is growing in popularity now, right? And that's kind of the umbrella that Code in Place falls under. Um, and during this entire process, I my we had the pandemic shortly after I started college the second time, and then my son was born, and then we lost our home, and then we like navigated a year where we had to kind of like move from place to place and house to house, and it was just a really, really crazy, tumultuous time. And the way that I navigated that process was by staying plugged in and connected. And I'm honestly not sure, especially in that really early part of that journey, I'm not sure if it would have been as easy for me to hop from one lily pad to the next, really, if it wasn't for Code in Place. That's kind of where I started getting my advice on where to go as far as my graduate school goals, and what my options were in industry and stuff like that, just from making these connections here. So it's not only been like an opportunity to grow in my ability to teach, and an opportunity to meet great people. It has really been something that has changed the trajectory of my and my family's life, being a part of this community. I lost my mother last year. And a big, big, big part of how I was able to make it through that was being engrossed in this atmosphere and in the community, and having people that were there for me and stuff like that. So there is a ton of significance for me for Code in Place for my life journey. And yeah, CS is what my second degree is in, but it was not my original pathway. It was just kind of a random like it was random happenstance and everything kind of just fell into place from there. So I would say if you enjoy this, right? If you like to write code and if you like to solve these problems and if you like find that you can't stop once you start, right? Something's done and then you think of 14 other things that you could do to it, right? And you've caught that bug. Just pursue that, right? Just chase that lead. And see where it takes you, because things are changing, and I think that one of the first things that will change is that as all of this technology kind of increases in capacity and capability, um, the the big thing will be who can communicate effectively, both with people and with machines. And your ability to communicate and relate to people and the way you show up to things and how you navigate things will always, always, always be important. I don't think there's ever a place where there's not a use case for those kinds of things.
Ty, just to add to what you mentioned there, about kind of what the journey was, right? Jake mentioned in the Q&A, hopes for the program as it continues to grow, right? Are there wish list things that we'd like to see? I think one of the things, and this kind of ties back to like what does being a head TA mean? I want everybody here to know that when you submit something, in especially in the reports, but also in the forums, right? Those things get seen. Those things get advocated for. When somebody says, "I wish we had a blank. Why can't we have blank? It would be great if we blank." Um, they don't just go into the ether, right? They get bubbled up and they get documented, and then we have sheets where things get put to say, hey, we think this idea over here, somebody thinks this idea, we should consider it, right? And I can't always say like what happens after that. I'm not sure always, right? Things happen in, as we call it, in the off season between the end of this code in place and the beginning of the next. But I want you to know that the things that, just Jake, you asked what do we feel like are wish list items, but I want you to know that the wish list items and the challenges that people experience, those get advocated for. That's a big part of what we do as head TAs. Um, Things that could seem as quote unquote simple as, hey, let's get like a add to calendar thing on the events. It's great. It's huge. Huge quality of life improvement. I mean, I use it. It's great. The thing that lets you put what time something is and it adapts that little widget to somebody else's time zone. So Matt doesn't have to go and make, time and date, meeting time announcers, right? Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm saying Matt, but anybody, right? Those are huge. But I think, part of the journey as a head TA too is understanding that this is a restaurant where people of many different experience levels are being served, right? And many different appetites are being served, and we're meeting people where they're at. And sometimes that means that features get prioritized in different ways. So it can be frustrating to see that happen as a head TA. But I also go into every code in place with the trust that the decisions being made on those things, there's a lot of good reason for it, even if I don't always see it. So I do want you to know that the features that you ask for, Jake, that you ask for, Nikhil, that you ask for, David, Ty, Doug, they get advocated for, and we really do feel that. One that I would love to see is, you know what? Come back to me.
And you mentioned different skill levels within the classes, and way earlier in the chat, we missed a question about that. Somebody noticed that there's different skill levels in their classes, and they asked if SLs can move a student to a different group. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I would say for the section leaders, that might be a little bit of the fun of the challenge. You have students from all different coding levels and backgrounds, and having to find a way to make sure everybody enjoys the course and gets something out of it. So maybe having somebody who knows a bit more code help somebody who is more of a beginner. Like I had never seen a line of code when I started Code in Place. But I realized that there are people who maybe program in a different language, and they're just trying to like convert those skills to Python. So yeah, thank you for mentioning the different skill levels in the classes.
I've got a couple of crying little ones, so I've got to get ready to run here in a second. But I did want to just kind of off the back of what Anissa was saying there. I think it is important to remember too that when Code in Place as a course gets kind of like disseminated into the ether, it's disseminated as a course for people who don't know how to write code. So in all things, when we teach, well, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm fairly certain that this is the case. When we teach, the we are teaching from the standpoint of the idea that there may be somebody in this room who has absolutely no idea what's going on right now, even if the most advanced student among us knows exactly what's going on. And kind of to Nessa's point, that's an opportunity I think to take the experience of some students in your class and maybe connect them and have them um, help other students when you know they have a great understanding of it. But the at its core, what we are setting out to do is teach people who have not written code before. So we don't want to leave those people behind. And it's a really tough balancing act sometimes, especially because you might have students in a class that are a bit more advanced and they tend to answer questions quickly. Um, and it makes you feel like you've got to kind of speed that process up or move along a little bit more quickly. But I think that one of the great things about Code in Place is kind of like this inherent built-in level of patience where people can be at whatever level they are, at whatever point they are, and be perfectly comfortable with that. So there is the experienced student kind of forum, but in section from week to week, I think that we are teaching with the person who knows the least among us in mind.
I like that. I like that perspective, especially of it being a challenge and teaching to multiple levels simultaneously. Every teacher, I assume, code or not, has to undergo that and has to learn that as a skill. I'd like to answer a question about Primo about for HTAs, do you find yourself more fulfilled when you were an SL or as a TA? And were there TAs who returned to being SLs? And I know at least one TA that I worked with last year that's an SL this year just because of time constraints, right? Because there are more demands on you from an administrative basis as a TA than there are as an SL, and that can just that has the potential to swallow up a lot more work hours than I think the more relatively well defined responsibilities of an SL. But as somebody in the chat said earlier, um, the upper limit for what you as an SL can invest into teaching is unlimited, right? You could spend 40 hours a week preparing for your classes if you wanted to do that and you had that time. But I think that what I miss, I was kind of an HTA and kind of an SL last year. I really miss teaching people directly and teaching students directly. And I certainly enjoyed as part of my TA responsibilities teaching the SLs, but it's a very different audience and it's a very different set of skills that you're teaching. And I kind of miss teaching the students. And I had experienced students, but in some ways they were still new to some of the things I had to teach them. And it's fun. It's fun to see their eyes light up, just like somebody else mentioned in the chat who was teaching 10 to 14-year-olds. I want to popcorn to maybe, whoever maybe David, what did you enjoy about being an SL that you miss as an HTA?
Yeah, so the HTA role is very administrative. It's all about like managing, I guess, and that's what the role sort of demands, and solving a lot of little putting out fires here and there, right? But that also means that we don't have a lot of opportunity to teach. So if your love is to actually teach sections, then you might not have a lot of that as a head TA unless you're covering for sections, right, during your on call or whatever. But we have had instances where people on the staff are, for example, I know like a dev, right, who is both a dev on the CIP team and also a section leader, so they can double up if they want. There's nothing stopping you from doing both, I guess. And some people do that. So yeah, if you have the time, right, because the head TA role demands like a certain amount of time, like 10 hours or so. And you want to go beyond and volunteer as a section leader, you can, I guess, theoretically, there's nothing stopping you.
Of course.
Oh, are we doing the same question, or do we have more to?
I'm just being a bully and just to asking everybody to answer my question.
I'll jump in real quick. I do want to address something that was mentioned in the Q&A very early on. There was a question about getting help with the instructions for scene with functions. I don't know if that person's still here, but I don't want anyone to think we were ignoring that. The truth is, that was probably the most important question, right? Here, but this might not have been the forum for it. So I would suggest if anyone's in that same boat of wanting help with that, we have some really, really great problem walkthroughs this weekend for Box Row, for Quilt. And if you pop by one of those, I'm certain you could probably put the question into the chat there to get some help on the scene with functions as well. I just didn't want anyone to think that we were kind of leaving that one dangling there. But another thing to mention, I mentioned come back to me about a feature, a functionality, and it actually ties, Bob, to something that I missed as a section leader that I was really glad we got back as a head TA. And this is an example of where advocacy worked. In a former platform that we used before the current beautiful code in place platform that we all see before us now, we had a collaborative coding environment where during your teaching, multiple people, your students, could actually type into the coding screen, into the IDE, right, at the same time. It was great because you could be there in section and say, Jake, can you give us a variable on line 7? David, can you start a function on line 31? And so we could all kind of learn and interact in that coding space together. And we lost that for a little while when we developed the new platform. And last year, by popular demand, we were able to advocate for that and then bring it back in the form of something called B Code, which, in all fairness, probably didn't get the publicity that I might have hoped this year. But that said, if you're interested, we can try to stand up like a little office hours to help folks as section leaders, get that tooling in place for their final section next week. It's actually really good for dictionaries and lists. But yeah, that's an example where we were able to advocate for something. And I'm sorry, I know this is kind of going back into another aisle, but what feature would I like to see, Jake, or what initiative would I like to see? I'd love to see a way for our staff and maybe section leaders, of a couple years of experience, right, to help mentor, and I use that word carefully because there's section leader mentors too, but I'd love to see a way for section leaders to get mentoring to continue to develop their teaching skills. There's a lot of section leaders who are really interested in that, and I think who would be really receptive to it. Of
Love that
course,
idea.
yeah, I mean, of course, it's the question of how do we scale it. That's always the question, right? But as you all have learned here, I will always advocate for helping one because I think of the ripple effect. But I think we could find a way, right? And we could deputize to have some section leaders help with that. But that's something, Jake, that I'd love to see us get a pathway towards because I think it helps to continue to level up the teaching. and it helps us to continue. Ty's not here now, but it helps us to continue to really, really support those who are at the very most beginnings of their coding journeys even better, right? Because the truth is, even if you're in a section and you're super experienced and there's people in there who are far less experienced coders, as an experienced coder, there's still things to learn. Katie's not here right now either, but Katie and I both share the ballet background. Um, for me, it's ballet and tap. And if I'm trying to get to a ballet class, even if it's an absolute beginner class, I will still go because there's always something to learn. And I think, as we continue to support the earliest learners on their journey, we also continue to support the more experienced learners. Same with section leading and getting section leaders leveled up.
Matt, thank you. Thank you again for always coming across as the warm, beating heart of Code in Place. I appreciate that immensely. Thank you.
And I did want to chime in and say, you mentioned that like we weren't ignoring anyone's question, but if we did accidentally miss something in the chat, because there's just a lot of things coming in, there is a dedicated forum post, and we will be taking a look at that as well. So if there's any questions after this meeting, whether they're for a specific head TA or general, please feel free to post them in there. And speaking of the chat, I also promised someone in the chat that I would add a open Q&A where they are welcome to come off mute and ask their questions as well at the end. So since we're coming close to the end of our time here, feel free to open your mic and ask that question. If you're
Yeah, that
still
would be me.
here with okay.
Yeah. Hello? Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? All right. So I also wanted to, it takes a special person to teach, right? And just so you guys are all aware, there might be people like myself who I did some coding previously, but I also deal with a learning disability. So the coolest thing that I think about TAs just in general is that they have the ability to not be condescending, and if you don't get it, are willing to, try different methodologies until it kind of like, clicks for you. So my question is that are you guys, do they teach you some sort of like a thing to have the equipment to deal with that?
I'll jump in really quick, and then I want to popcorn it to, I think Doug and Inessa. Mike, first of all, very, very, very grateful for your willingness to be vulnerable and share that. That's huge. That's huge. Because for all those who aren't in a place to share that, that probably also provides some comfort to them as well. And I think also, even if it's not the same exact thing that someone's experiencing, that question about frustrations earlier with figuring out a problem, I think it's applicable there too. So thank you for the vulnerability to share. Second, we are huge, 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 huge on accessibility with Code in Place in whatever ways we can do it. I can tell you there is a line on a slide in section leader training that lets section leaders know that if there is a learning challenge that they are becoming aware of from a student in their section and they don't feel equipped to handle it, to reach out because we want to help and we have ways to do that. And Inessa, Doug, I think you've both been involved on the accessibility front, so I'm going to popcorn over to you. But Michael, thank you again for sharing. My Doug or Inessa, can you maybe just give a little perspective on the some of the accessibility initiatives?
Yeah, and there's been like there has been sometimes we've had sections of deaf students and focus on that and I know that has been something that a couple years ago it was near and dear to my heart. Tried to really get that going, working with some deaf students, and I know different people have different things with accessibility. I know Anessa's been involved with that as well. So, but yeah, I appreciate Mike's question and Mike's sharing about that. And the other thing, Mike, and for everyone, is there's not just one style to teach. People have different styles and different people have different strengths and can reach different people that way. So not everybody needs to be this cut from the same cookie cutter mold.
Yeah,
I'd
and
also
I've
like to,
been. Oh, sorry,
I'd
you.
also like to, so, oh, I'm so sorry, Inessa. Before you were going to wrap it up, I wanted to react something to something that Matt said and Mike asked, which is, yeah, there is something in this team that I don't think people who aren't kind and who aren't warm and who aren't wanting to help in whatever way they're capable, right? All of us can help in different ways. But if you aren't kind and helpful, I don't think you may not make it onto the HGA team. And if you do, I don't think you'll last very long because this is not a good environment for people who can't be kind, understanding, empathetic. And so those are values that we value immensely on the Code and Place team in general. And that's I am so sorry to jump in there. I just wanted to like put that out there because I think that's a really important component of being on this team and working in Code and
Yeah, thank you. And I do love that. I also wanted to mention that accessibility isn't always just an issue like a learning disability or something like that. There's also people who might have a language barrier and then they get anxiety or they don't want to speak up. So we also try to encourage our section leaders to make everyone feel welcome and tell people if they're not really speaking, like, oh, you could put it in the chat if you want, or I could read it out loud for you. So we just want to make sure that everyone is included and has their needs met and feels comfortable enough to email either their section leaders or the head TAs or anyone on staff, really, if they do need anything, to see what we can do.
And just a plug here for hit that gear in the platform and hit the report if there's a need that you have that's not being met or something that you feel like maybe you don't have the solution for how to help us do it better, but you're like, hey, I'm having a challenge with. I tried to do a teach now and you know it didn't work out. Like you know what do I do? Is there a way we can try something else? Make a report, stick it in there, and if it's like if you have to say this guy Matt said to do it, you know, no, I'm kidding, but you can, but no, reach out. That's why we're here, and that's why we have tried to build these mechanisms to do that.
Well, I appreciate everybody. And it really isn't like I share that with maybe I'm overshare it. I'm an oversharer, I guess. But you know, I just it you know, I've dealt with it since I was 20 actually. So I was diagnosed very, very late. So, but I appreciate that and it's great to know that there are things that I can I guess, you know, ask for if I need. So, but I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for allowing me to ask this.
Oh yeah, Michael, I see you're raising your hand. Feel free to come off mute.
Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, thank you guys, everyone, for your time. Really enjoyed this discussion. Just want to share something random, but it could be helpful for the potential next head TA. Um, I actually just realized I got an email from previous sections that I've taught. So make sure you check your emails and don't miss that opportunity. Um, it, so check your emails, and I think when you give it your all and you spend time to prepare for these sections, like the students get even more livelier, and I really do think there's like a direct correlation to how much time you put into to prepare. Because I get really nervous, like no matter how prepared I am, I get a little bit nervous before I start. Because like we discussed in the chat, like sometimes I always think, what if there's a question that I don't know how to answer? Like how can I explain that? But it turns out that like everyone's really in this class to learn from each other, and not just you leading everything. And I had a student recently, like he's like, I know the answer. And I asked him, like, do you mind holding not telling the answer, but you could definitely contribute. Maybe you could be the section leader today and to give us some hints and stuff. And so we talked about like different levels of like students. Some of them are more experienced, they have programming backgrounds, but um, I I I think one way that I kind of approach that problem is like, okay, then I'm gonna have you kind of role play as a section leader today and just kind of like give your own perspective, because maybe my perspective is not the best one, or it's not, like coding programs, there's multiple different ways to approach that. So maybe you could try that next week. It might work for you. But that's one tough lesson I learned, is check your emails. You get a really nice email asking about that there's a call for head TAs. And so I'm definitely going to check my emails to see if I get it this time around or not. But just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for the inspiring talks. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. Also, you being vulnerable. And man, I understand about anxiety. I nearly die every time I have to do public speaking. So I totally get it.
And thanks for the reminder for folks to check their emails. Sometimes the emails might not come from the Code in Place email either. I emailed from before I got a Stanford email to the ambassadors this year, and a lot of people did not even realize or answer until it was way late in the game.
Yeah, yep. So actually, the way I search my emails, I put code in place all in one word. But actually, this email came from someone stanford.edu, and the title has code in place in 3 words, not in one word. So when I was sorting through the emails, like I have a lot of junk emails, so I gotta just get more organized. But just watch out for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't miss Dowd's email this year. But that spam filter works overtime sometimes.
Yep.
But I guess we are a little bit over the time that the event was scheduled for. Um, so if there are any final questions before we wrap up, please let us know.
I just have
Hi,
one,
Mike.
Rick. Yeah, one quick question. You guys all have emails out there, so like if we wanted to directly communicate, or is it just something like we have to post in the forum?
All right, I guess I could answer this one. We do have emails, but you could also post in forum. And if you set it to private, then only staff will see. But if you want to reach an individual, one of us, you can also post in the forum asking to reach a specific person. But yeah, if you set it to private in the forums, then only staff and HTAs will see.
I just said there's a question that was in the chat, or maybe yeah, the chat, um, that I think I don't want to be the one who tells us who says let's wrap up on this one, but that I think is a really nice kind of bring it home question, and it's something along the lines. I'm trying to scroll to it now. Along the lines of how do you stay passionate? How do we stay passionate about coding, about programming, about computer science? And I would even expand it to stay passionate about the learning journeys of others as head TAs, right? And about code in place and about just continuing to kind of spread the learning the the appetite for learning around. So for me, I'll take that last part. How do I spread the passion for the appetite of learning? I think it is about maybe folks will laugh at this. Jake would always give me a hard time in section leader training last year. I would say I don't use sports analogies, and then I go and use sports analogies. So here's one. There's a joke in golf that it's you can have a terrible golf outing, but it's better than being in the office that day. But then there's another golf joke that is every time you go out, you're looking for that one really good shot you had last time, right? And you might have 17 terrible holes and you had one great hole, right? 18 holes in golf. So sometimes it is that one teachable moment, that one person that worked for that one person. Mike, I'm not picking on you, but I'm just since you asked a question, I'll see with you, right? Like that
Pick away.
that Mike and I had this connection on this coding concept, right? And Mike got dictionaries because we talked about it this way. And it's like the next time I go out and teach, I could have a terrible section. No, there's no such thing, right? But I could have a section where nobody participates, which, by the way, in my opinion, they're still worth teaching as if everybody was there watching with eyes wide open because you don't know what's happening on the other side of those keyboards just because the camera isn't on and just because people aren't in the chat. So I say teach them as if they're a full section and they're all participating. But anyway, you could have a section where no one participates, but it is that moment that Mike and I had that carries me through that section into the next section and into the next one, knowing that there are more mics out there who are ready to have a teachable moment on another topic, and that I showed up, gave them a chance to have that teachable moment. Not to say I'm that important, but to say that, we bring the energy, right, Bob? We bring the atmosphere, and the atmosphere sometimes is what makes people come back. Somebody here said, I don't know which person said, maybe something along the lines of maybe someone hasn't even done any coding yet in Code in Place, and here we are in week 71 of Code in Place, right? And you haven't coded yet. Somebody laugh at that joke, please. Somebody laugh at that joke. So anyway, that's okay because if there's something that we're doing that is making them still show up for section, even if they haven't coded yet, they're more likely to code than if they didn't show up for section at all. And I'll leave it with that. I'll popcorn it to whoever wants it next.
I was laughing, Matt. I was laughing, and the mic just didn't pick it up, honestly. But thank you for that atmosphere shout out because I don't think we can stress that enough. Chris always says fun, 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 and that's shorthand for having a safe, great, pleasant, interesting, friendly environment. All right, Anessa, how are we doing?
I mean, we are a little bit past time, but if y'all don't mind staying a few extra minutes so everyone can answer that last question before we go, that would also be okay with me.
Which one? The last Q&A one about being CS majors or pivots?
Either that or a mix of that one, because I think a few people covered that earlier, and how you stay passionate with coding. if you want to go next, as that's fine too.
I'll go next, but I don't see the one. I don't see the one you're referring to. I only see one question in the Q&A right now. But I'll jump in on that. Yeah, I I studied computer science and electrical engineering, but just totally bounced off the college formalisms and structures. I wanted to do stuff and I didn't want to learn. I wanted to go do and build. And so I essentially focused so much on starting a little business that I flunked out and kept on going for all these years afterwards, just on pure love of the computer science and electrical engineering craft. But I think that the reason that I, the reason that I got noticed by Code in Place was because I was having so much fun, not because of any degrees I had or LinkedIn qualifications or certificates on my walls. Um, it showed that I had passion for what I was doing, and you don't have to you don't have to show that in your sometimes you do jobs in which you don't necessarily have that sense of passion, but you have to find that sense of passion somewhere in your life, and that's what people will notice. I'm a popcorn that too. Who haven't I annoyed with this yet? Oh, okay. Let's see. I was going to pick Katie. Anybody else? Let's see. I picked Doug.
So what was the question?
Inessa? Is it the Q&A one plus some other stuff?
Yeah, the other one was in the chat buried somewhere. So either what keeps you passionate with coding, or if you were a CS major, or how did you pivot into your discipline, and how do you navigate through uncertainties, if there's any role or significance being a head TA meant to your journey. So any or all of the above.
So, sure. So how do I keep passion? I mean, I've been in CS a long time, and there's always new things to learn. There's always new things to learn, which is nice. Things keep changing all the time, and but I also like dealing with people and working with people. And my vehicle is that is computer science, but I enjoy different aspects of it. I mean, 30 years ago, I enjoyed being the best software engineer in my team. Now I enjoy mentoring people and learning new things and mentoring people in different aspects of the journey. So there's just a lot of different things that I enjoy, and my the specific things about the passion have changed, but the overall passion has not changed, and I've given myself permission to segue from this focus to that focus to the other focus and keep things interesting. So I'll pop it to someone else now.
Yeah, you have to pick your next victim, Doug.
So who's still here from the HTAs? Why doesn't HTA jump in? Anybody?
Okay, I'll take it from Doug. Okay, so in terms of being passionate, okay, I'll answer this question in two parts actually. Like what makes me passionate about coding in general, right? So I'll start with how my coding journey started, right? So this is back in middle school. I started with something called MS Logos. I don't know how many of you have used it. It's pretty similar to Carol, where you have a turtle and you have a very limited number of commands, and you can actually, as you code, you can visualize it and you can see whatever you're coding turn into something, right? And I think as I've grown over the years, learning different languages through high school, through college, and now at work. Uh, I think for me, what genuinely worked out for me was the fact that to be able to see, like, I've always been someone who prefers application more than research, right? So just fiddling around with code, even if it's something that I'm learning at that point of time, even if I've learned it for years, just sitting down, writing a new piece of code, or just looking at a piece of code and trying to make some changes with it and see what change it makes, right? So that's something that's definitely uh, great for me, because to see a real impact that my code makes, and to see that it's changing something, right? And over the years, I think that has made me pivot towards, not just in terms of work, but towards projects which make meaningful impact, if you think about it. So since Code in Place started in during the pandemic, right? And this is 2021, and we were going through the second wave of pandemic at that point of time, right? And I remember at that point of time, we built a website which was called Covidarage, right? Which basically, I was a group of us in college who got together and we built a website, and in real time we were tracking different resources which were available in our locality at that point of time. So oxygen cylinders, availability of ambulances, hospital beds, and everything. Then during one of my internships, I built one of these ML models which could, which was built on which was trained with images of your backbone, right? And you could upload an image of your backbone, and it would be able to detect whether you have a vertebral anomaly or not, right? So whether you have a scoliosis or kyphosis or lordosis, any of these things, right? So just seeing the impact my code or the language that I'm writing could make in real life to someone was something that drives me even now. So even when I'm working today, I always think that what impact does it have on someone else? What welfare would it bring to them, right? So that's what makes me passionate about coding. And if you're talking about the learning journey or teaching journey, right? So I think coding, and one other thing, which is debating or oratory, has something that has always been very, very personal and core to me, right? Like beyond any point of time, if I'm not coding, I'm debating or arguing on different forums, whether it's on Reddit or any other forum altogether, right? So yeah, and so since I'm so passionate about these things, I'm always trying to pass on that passion to someone else, or trying to get them interested in it as well. So I think that's how I got into coding and Code in Place, and just to spread that love that I have for coding and any other subject is something that I genuinely love. And I think that is what drives me to come back every year to Code in Place and teach, whether it's as an SL or right now as an HTA. So both of those things are definitely the highlight for me.
I think I'm the last head TA who hasn't responded yet. So I would say that definitely these past couple of years since OpenAI, the GPT, and then we have this huge race from all the Magnificent Seven companies, right, trying to make their own frontier AI models and all this stuff. The industry has been in turmoil. You all know about the massive layoffs at Meta and all these companies. But the thing is, they're not just laying people off; they're actually rehiring as well. But they're rehiring people with like new skills, right? So I think, there's like a phrase from Game of Thrones, like chaos is a ladder. And I think this is a very exciting time for everyone because everyone is kind of a little scared, right? People who are entrenched as developers or as product managers or whatever, they might have to learn new skills. So, for example, my own journey was that I started off as a software engineer and then eventually transitioned to product management, right? And as a product manager, you don't really do any coding at all, but I have the coding background. And now what I'm seeing from the product managers, right, the people who are worried about losing their jobs as a PM or whatever, right, is that they're now being asked to code using like Claude Code or these AI tools, right? And it's actually like you can take it both ways. Like if you're heavily entrenched with your old skills, then you might be terrified that you're asked to do something that you traditionally weren't asked to do. But for someone like me, it's super exciting because I'm like, okay, well, I can do the product management side, right? All the jobs that duties that entail that role. But now I can also be a builder as well. So I don't have to rely on the UX or UI team to give me a prototype. I don't have to rely on some dev to build me some alpha version of something. I can just do it myself. So the idea of using these tools to become like a super PM is pretty exciting. And I think on the flip side, for the dev side, if it's true that you don't have to do as much coding because tools like Anthropic's stuff is helping you out, then they're actually becoming more toward PMs, right? Because they have more time to think of, oh, what should I build, right? What features should I build? So on the PM side, it's converging toward the devs and on the dev side, it's converging to the PM. And I'm sort of wondering, is there just going to be a single role in the future, like a builder role? And I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that. And it's almost like we're in the old world, and we got to get on the ship to sail to the new world. So that's what inspires me nowadays to still keep up with all the latest tech, and I think it's really exciting. And Inessa, I think you wanted to answer this as well.
Yeah, so I actually mentioned earlier that I was a psychology major for my bachelor's. And I would say that with Code in Place, even after taking the class, like I'm not like a software developer, and I'm hoping that other people can also be inspired to use code for either creative coding or personal projects. I've met people who studied computer science and then just solving some of the logic problems helped them to get into law school because of the logic-based questions on entry exams. So even if you don't want to be a software engineer or like a software developer, like that's okay as well. And I think that's one of the reasons that I enjoy coming back, because there's so many people from so many different walks of life, and everybody uses code for something different. Like I want to get into tech marketing now, but I know how to speak to people who do code. And also when I want to do like a little side project, like I made my portfolio using HTML and CSS, but maybe I'll add some Python into it later, or JavaScript. And classes like this help you learn no matter where you are. And I've really enjoyed Code in Place for that, and especially the community and the help that I get from it. So I guess that's what kept me passionate about Code in Place for all these years. And I think that it has been a little bit over 2 hours, and I'm seeing some thumbs up. So I would say that this might be a good point for us to stop the video for the day, but keep the forum open. So if there's any more questions or we missed something, please feel free to let us know in the dedicated forum post.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you for setting this up, Inessa. Really appreciate it, and thanks to everybody for attending.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you everybody for being here.
Thanks, folks.
All right.
Inessa,
Good night.
Inessa, do you want any of us to hang in case there's a burning question, or do you want to close? It's up to you.
I guess we could hang here for another minute or two just in case.
I mean, I'm happy.
But feel free to go as well. I could stay for a few more minutes just in case.
I'm happy to linger in case there's someone who has a question that they didn't want an audience to a big group, you know.
Okay.
Matt can go another 6 hours.
Oh, this is another campfire. Wait, are you sneaking? Are you turning this into a campfire?
Not at all.
Stealthily?
Not at all.
Crypto camp. I see what you're doing here, Matt. All right. Good day, good afternoon, good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. And then there were 3. All right. So Matt, should we close out and leave it to the forum? You're on mute.
The last lottery numbers of the day. I was giving them away. That was the secret to the meaning of life I was just sharing. No, that sounds good, Anessa. We'll keep an eye on the forums. Thanks, everybody. Good to see everyone.
I think you have the power to shut the meeting.
You want me to kill it? Okay. All right, guys. And it's great to see everyone. See you in the forums and maybe at future events. Plug events coming up this weekend for walkthroughs of problems. Yes, they're really good. All right, see you there.